Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Jolt. I think this review is hopefully going to just make people aware that maybe they should go out of their way to avoid this film. Go out of your way to not see this film, and I'm going to tell you why eventually in a portion of this review. With how bad that this movie is, I'm not going to invest the huge amount of time I would normally going into any number of any kind of other reviews. So if this is a lot shorter, it doesn't have enough information that you like, I do apologize. I also apologize if this review may seem offensive to anybody, but also I would go out of my way to say that this movie is also a very offensive film. Really just getting down to the fact that we have a lot of male characters who are honestly just kind of either written as slobs, pigs, or really just ignorant people, or really just at any point the enemy of our main character, who is Lindy. I just could not just justify to anyone seeing this film. We also have Lindy, who at one point in this movie is to be chucking babies around in a film, and I'm just like, how is this not the worst scene that you could ever have in a film? But yeah, that's the make or break scene for a lot of people, and some people will just be fine with that kind of scene or fine with this whole movie because whatever reason that they have. A lot of people might say that this movie is great or whatever, and I just can't help but just say I don't quite understand the movie that you watched. To me, I had several problems breaking down the whole thing of this movie, where it kind of seems like there's not a lot of research that was done via this character. How it kind of feels like they went into saying, oh, this is just an abnormally angry Hulk raging monster of a woman, so to speak. And basically, if she is to have anyone be angry around her in her radius, she is to want to go and beat them down as if they stole her money, or they robbed her, or they were threatening a gun upon her life. And so, she has to defend a random person that is to be belittling someone around her radius of space. How the fact that we end up having to force this person from going into a mental hospital and into the military and into a number of things that just obviously would say, they couldn't have anything to do with her, and then just kind of just let her who is technically the metaphorical match of a wild animal just let loose onto the wild and hope that she doesn't murder, kill, or whatever anybody. I just don't quite understand the world of which that this woman lives into, where anyone is perfectly happy with this girl just going and killing and murdering and maiming people, knowing full well that she has that condition or whichever. So they're basically letting a murderer loose and they're fine with it. And I could care less if it's just well, what about Bucky? What about this? What about that? It's two slices of a different pie. Basically, Bucky never had the urge to kill anybody. Where this girl, fantasizes about it, is tempted to do it, but then eventually is to have a thing forcibly stopping her from murdering. Bucky doesn't have that problem. Bucky didn't have that problem of man, I just want to consistently murder everyone and I just can't stop it. We have where this girl cannot turn the switch off, if you know what I mean. She has to get something to stall her from easily escalating every single thing that she's to do into murder. And so I just cannot just justify this movie to someone. Uh, like I just thought there was a lot of like unresearch being done. They had to just kind of figure out how exactly to just kind of give a half-ass like reason like to like have this person be the way she is, and they also have to make her abnormally strong and abnormally like whatever, so that way like we can easily have her take down the number of people that she takes down in this film, which is what it is. So also going on in this movie, it's just kind of interesting how like we have the male cop who is to be consistently just like, I hate the interactions between both Lindy and Vickers in this entire film, to the point where I would have rather just had every one of those scenes just edited out in this entire film. How it kind of feels like in every part of this movie this girl can get away with murder through this entire thing because we have these cops that are too dumb to slap the cuffs on this woman, or even at the end of this film like do anything up to this woman who's Lindy. So yeah, so going into it, let's go into further more deep diving of this film, because I kind of talked about this cryptically. Let's get into spoilers and then I'll call this a day. I'm going to quickly go through spoilers because if anybody could get my consensus of this film, I would just say avoid this movie. Don't watch it because it's not worth your time. And honestly, like there is better movies out there that isn't just a concept, and that's about all. So with that said, let's go into spoilers. I'm going to quickly go through this movie, so we're going to go out of our way to say it is spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time you to spoil this movie. Very beginning, we have this girl who is to be angry for absurd reasons. Supposedly they just said, well, yeah, her mom's just probably angry, and her dad's just probably a drunk, and so that's just why she's just an angry person. And she really needs to be like straight-jacketed seemingly at all times, or she's just gonna take and grab a man and fling him over her head with her legs and just murder people. But they're just gonna eventually just let this woman easily loose, because mental hospitals could not figure out or could not understand what exactly to do with this woman. So they decided, well, maybe the military could just straighten her out, you know? Maybe the military will just easily take this woman and form her into an assassinational being of sorts. Because, if anything, it's a really smart thing where this girl will just kill anybody and their brother. And why not just give a gun to this woman now? That seems brilliant. So, Lindy is to do this American Gladiators moment with one of her other army people. And so, of course, this guy starts bipping her in the face and whatever. And so Lindy just starts hauling away on this man and just beating the living crap out of him. And so all of a sudden her superior like tries to pull her off. And so all of a sudden like we now have Lindy who's beating up her superior. And wouldn't that have immediately taken her to the brig? Like, wouldn't she be in jail for like a severely long time? Wouldn't she end up in the brig consistently? Wouldn't she like, isn't there military law or rules that would say that this person is going to be in prison? Like, was there any spot of that where, like, you cannot go and smack up your superior and not have any kind of disciplinary actions being done? That just seems outlandish to me. But I guess, like, the military couldn't do anything with this girl either, so they just discharged her. So she ends up with Dr. Munchin, which has got to be the greatest name, right? Like, there's a bunch of garbage names being chucked into this movie anyways. and most of them are from the male side of things, sadly enough. So Dr. Munchin, who is to be Stanley Tucci, which a lot of people, I guess, just needed money in this film. Like, obviously. And plus, a lot of them probably they're like, dude, this was a lot of easy work. Like, man, just like a couple days here and there to just do this movie. And they're gonna, like, I'm gonna say what to this person? Great. So. So Dr. Munchin is to eventually go and seemingly be the friend at first with Lindy, and so he's the guy that puts together this sports bra of a electric chair like vest for her, which could not for the life of me make sense to have one person be able to put this on and off every single day of their life. But like that's just me. So because this person has like back attachmental things that I could not say like did this girl have like a stick or something that she could plop these things on? Like how is it that these things are to stick? Because obviously when a person is to take these things off, it seems like no one person could easily be able to put these things on every single day unless it's Dr. Munchin who is appearing at this woman's house every single morning to help her put this on. I could for the life of me not exactly justify that. So so Linda is to eventually go on this blind date that I believe was set up by this therapist that she was to have, or psychiatrist. So we have Linda who is to eventually go on this date, and before she even gets to the date, she almost wants to go and beat the crap out of some guy who's getting a valet being done. So, Lindy goes to the date and then eventually quickly wants to leave. Justin is like, well, hey, how about you just sit here? We'll just have something. Lindy quickly has the chicken, and so Justin is to consistently try to order, and everything has freaking peanuts or whatever that he's allergic to. And so again, Lindy is to just electrify herself. And Justin is seeing that Lindy is grabbing for the knife. Justin is like, hey, if you're going to stab her, go right ahead. So eventually, Lindy is to go and beat up the waitress in this bathroom stall. And eventually, both of them are to leave to eventually go on uh, and continue on this date together. Both Lindy and Justin both like kiss one another. They end up in passionate lovemaking. Lindy stops wearing the suit because she's like, you know what? I think I feel great. I think this is like the perfect thing for me. Because Dr. Munchin is like, yeah, I thought you kind of needed a wang anyways inside of you, if you know what I mean. So, but Dr. Munchin is like, this is progress. If anything, like, I think you're feeling a lot of euphoria. You probably should not, uh, you probably should not just take this so easily because something is going to happen and then you're going to wish that you have your vest on you. Because eventually at some point we're again going to have Lindy without her vest again, and she's going to be like, oh my god, I need my vest, I need my vest, I need my vest. And she'll be like thinking that she can like click something that isn't actually there. So pushing on, so once she goes and sleeps with this man, all of a sudden she ends up finding out that this guy is to be dead. Weird, right? But here's something weirder. So Lindy just decides upon herself because she's never been a cop in her life. She has never been in a PI company of sorts. I guess evidently because she was in the military for X amount of time that like the girl Krista Starr from the Blade series, I guess could easily just become a detective because skills of her own. We eventually have Lindy who is to eventually get a call from these, or like she is to call Justin's phone and the detectives are to pick up. So Lindy is hearing about these detectives and hearing what had happened to Justin. So what ends up happening is Lindy ends up conveniently goes and steals the report from this detective's office about this whole murder. She also goes into the evidence room because she can easily just sneak in there without anybody noticing because this police department sucks. And so Lindy can just go into the evidence room and just steal a bunch of stuff, and no one will be the wiser. Uh, and so, like, Lindy is just the invisible man, I guess, at some points in this movie. I don't get it. So Lindy is Lindy is to eventually like figure out that because Justin had mentioned that he was an accountant for some people, probably some very shady people, which led him to be dead. So Lindy is to take Justin's phone and take it to some tech squad people. And of course, we have the hugely most stereotypical hacker that I've ever seen in my life in this film needing to give Lindy information. Here's also the thing: Lindy goes and does this case because it's like, oh yeah, he's just a guy that I slept with, and like I spent some time with him. Like, so Lindy didn't like have any real feelings for this guy. Like Lindy just needed something to do, obviously, because she has nothing better to do with her life. Because all that Lindy does is just take photos of people, and that's all she really does. Like she doesn't do it for money, I guess. She just does it. Toward eventually, Justin gives her this big fat camera for reasons I don't understand. Eventually, Lindy just like throws away the camera anyways because she's just bitter? I don't know. But anyways, so Lindy is to find out that there is some guy that is to eventually lead her to finding out more information about Justin. She has to beat up three guys to do shit to get this information from this guy. She does that easily. She kicks one guy in the nuts. She rips piercings from this guy's nuts. She spits on one guy, and she just annihilates everybody, leading us to eventually having this guy supposedly not wanting to give her the information. So she decides that she's going to take jumper cables to this guy's balls and to get information, which I thought was like the most horrible thing that you could just like like wow. Like when we get to this part, I'm just like, man, like the buck doesn't stop here, that's for sure. So the offensive buck, but it is what it is. So uh that leads us to have this guy give information about this building, and so Lindy goes on to eventually meet a guy who's going to club her in this elevator, and so they end up kind of like holding her in this chair, taking off her uh, electric chair sports bra, and so they eventually just take all of her stuff and then just let her go. We have the main guy who had taken all her stuff, which was Delacroix, who goes to his boss, who is to be Fixel, and asks Delacroix after the fact what they should do with this woman when this woman has already been like escorted out of this building. And Fitzel, who is this slob of a man, in all honesty, just the way they depict him is just straight up awful. Like he's to say, "Oh, just kill her off." So they couldn't have decided that before she was to leave the building. Just my thought process here, but anyways, so they decide to want to kill this woman off, and so here's also the thing. We also bizarrely have Lindy who decides to blow up her apartment for whatever reasons that I just don't quite understand. I guess to make people believe that she was dead or whatever. I didn't get what that whole purpose was at all in this movie. But also, I just didn't get a bulk of this film. I also didn't get where we have the male cop who is to be injured and needing to desperately go to the hospital when he hasn't done jack crap nothing in this movie. We have the female detective that is doing a lot of the legwork, but like she's not the one that actually gets injured. She actually gets beaten up by Lindy and doesn't get hurt, injured, or whatever. But the male cop, of course, gets bizarrely injured, to where it conveniently writes us in that Lindy has to go to the hospital to speak to this detective. The female cop chases after her, and that's when we get the whole baby chucking scene, which I'm like, God, this movie is freaking awful at this point. So, but that's not all, folks. So, leading us to having just Lindy decide that she wants to go back to this building to go after uh, all these guys and to kill them off. So, Lindy bizarrely has this like rock climber absurd strength to just be able to body press her way up the very top of the ceiling, or the rooftop of this building, which once she gets there she's met again by the guy that wants to deck her in an elevator every single time. And so this time around, this guy is to go and just drain all the blood out of Lindy. Lindy is to rip the IV out to spray blood in this guy's face, and then, of course, kill him, because why wouldn't she? And so by the time, because Lindy had talked to Fitz before as he was drunking, or who, like, as he was slovenly eating lobster, and he was like, I'm such a slob. And I'm like, good God, could they write this person any worse? So Lindy is to come back to find Fizzle, or whatever the heck his name is, the guy from Harry Plopper. And so she ends up going and finding him to try to kill him, and coincidentally, he's already dead. We all of a sudden see somebody clapping in the background, and immediately I know exactly who that is. Because we didn't see this guy's body, so I'm like, okay, so this guy is obviously not actually dead. So Justin is to arrive to showcase that this guy wasn't the big cheese, that if anything, like, Justin was just better at cooking the books than we thought, I guess. And so Justin is to basically, like, tell Linda, like, you did all of this for me? Like, and so now we just have him do a lot of piggish, like, comments that I honestly really hated. But we also have Justin, who has kind of rigged Lindy's electric chair vest, because of course Justin had worked with Dr. Munchin, and so Justin is now electrifying Lindy even to a worse degree than what she was. But with the willpower of Lindy, she just goes and chucks some purse into Justin's face and runs off, because this purse is to have a bomb in it. And so Lindy is to perfectly get away and have Justin die. Like, you would have thought that she would have really, like, killed this guy and beat the living crap out of him, but instead she just chucks a bomb in his face and then walks off. I just don't get this movie. So, Justin's dead, huzzah, huzzah, but that leads to having Lindy wanting to go back to Dr. Munchin, because she thought that he was her friend. No, like, that doesn't happen with any of the males in this movie, with the exclusion of probably Detective Visker, who, no matter what, just doesn't want to arrest Lindy, even though, like, this woman was in his face numerous times throughout this film, to where he could have easily cuffed her, but he didn't, because he is just the worst cop in this whole movie, to where, like, a bulk of his scenes are sitting down in a car, or just, like, having these dialogues or whatever that I just, like, am consistently just like, man, this guy is just demasculated through this whole entire film. So, that leads us to eventually have Lindy making it to Dr. Munchin, and so she, of course, wants to kill him too, and that leads the detectives actually going and doing their jobs for once. and going and arresting Lindy before she is to kill Dr. Munchin. They end up having to forcibly just shoot Lindy in the leg. And I'm just like, dude, if somebody's killing another person, shoot them in the head or in the chest. Like any police officer would do that. Like this guy is just like basically just being the worst cop ever, and just like, well, like if I'm gonna see somebody killing someone, I'm just gonna shoot that person in the leg. Yeah, that happens all the time in police work, every single day. So we have Lindy who is to be told that, yeah, you're gonna go away for prison, or go away in prison for a while, because like she escaped arrest, she assaulted an officer, she did 20 billion other things, and and so they're asking her about every single thing that she did. She tortured a guy, she did this to this one, blah blah blah, she killed people. And through the whole entire thing, Lindy is just saying that it's self-defense. I'm sure it is. I'm sure torture is a self-defense mechanism. So, so they said, yeah, you're gonna go away to prison for a very long time, and I'm like, okay, so they're gonna arrest her right here and there, and no, they just let her go about her day, and just like, we'll get you eventually when we're just like when we really want to, like. So this girl goes back to her burnt apartment room to meet Sharon Sarandon, or Sharon Sarandon, Susan Sarandon, who is a woman with no name, because that's what they call her. And so she's basically saying like, "Hey, like Lindy, we're gonna make a sequel out of this. I don't know why, but we're gonna make one. Like I'm gonna have you help me, like do a number of things in the future." And isn't that great? Like we have like Susan Sarandon's character who has watched over Lindy for a number of years or whatever, hence why she's the narrator of this movie. And so we just have Susan Sarandon that's like, yeah, like let's go on to another adventure, because I'm just gonna like let you know that also I can control you as well, because here's my button that I can press to electrify you, and so you're gonna do what I say, which leads to there just being, I guess, just a transition of, hey, sequel. I guess they just feel like they're gonna make so much money off this movie that sequel is gonna happen. So yeah, so with that said, yeah, like that's what all happens in this movie for the most point. Stuff that I just kind of skipped around about because I just didn't like. I hated this film. I thought it was awful. I thought it was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. And that's hard to say because there's pretty bad films. Like, this is just a generic action movie that didn't need to be done. Like, it's just a concept, and then they created a horrible script around that. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.